Who? Do I know you?
I'm literally you. I'm you before you start college, and I got a few questions about WRA. Can I come inside and ask you them?
No way I grew that much, bro. You're short. Okay. Follow me. Follow me. All right. So, like, what do you want to know about WRA? All right. We both know we suck at writing. Like, we've been terrible since like elementary school. We've been in reading and writing support in middle school. You literally doubled up on both of them. Like, how is that even possible? Okay, whatever. Besides the point. I just need some tips. All right. I just need some tips for this class because I'm stressed out, man. But don't even stress. The class was actually it was actually pretty good. It was actually pretty chill. And don't worry, bro. I got some tips for you. All right, bro. Before you start spilling, is that a bag of coffee beans? Okay, bro. First off, it's finals week. I need to be on top of my game, and I just decided let me just get straight to the source. You know, let me just get the straight caffeine. You know what I'm saying? Pretend I never even said anything. Let's just cut to the chase. So, what projects did you do? Were they all writing? Like, what other stuff did you have to do? Like, did you have to write 50-page essays? Because this is your first college writing class. So I'm curious how it went. You know, give me the whole rundown of the whole semester. Yeah, so you work on 4 projects throughout the semester, and so basically the first project you work on is a traditional writing class, like we've done through high school. You have to make a personal narrative, but the catch is the prompt is actually pretty tricky, and we had actually, not we, me, you will though later too, I had a pretty hard time figuring out a good unlearning experience to talk about, but I'll talk about that more in depth later. The second project we work on is an annotated bibliography. On top of the annotated bib, you have to make an infographic, which was actually pretty cool. The third project you work on is a cultural practice, rhetorical analysis, multimodal project. I know it sounds pretty complicated, and it kind of was, but I'll go more in depth later on that too. I'll give you specific details of each, but I just want to give you the rundown, all right? You got that?
Yeah, I got that. Keep going.
All right, perfect. And the fourth project, I'll talk about later, okay? Okay, I got you. Do you think you can go in depth on all of those 4 projects? Is that cool? Because I just want to know the experiences you had and the things you've learned from doing those projects. Is that cool? All right, bet. All right, so for project 1, the writing process was actually pretty good. For the first time ever, I actually decided to write the paper a few days before it was due instead of the night before. I know. Congratulate me. Anyways. You and your fellow students are basically going to have to compose a story that you can talk about an unlearning experience you had. Why are you giving me that look? Do you even know what composing means?
No.
Of course you don't. Well, basically it means putting together words, sentences, and ideas to create a coherent and meaningful piece of writing. Basically, you're going to be having to be a literary architect, basically. So back to what I was saying. Basically, I had a generic but doable story that I could talk about an unlearning experience. However, this is actually where things took an interesting turn. 2 days before the final project was due, I actually decided to entirely change my essay. Basically, I decided to write an essay that I thought was a more authentic story because I wanted to tell something to people that I actually did learn a lot of things from. I actually had to unlearn a lot of things to basically learn my family situation at the time. And basically, just want to get to my point. This is why your new writing process that you will be developing is actually really nice because it gives you cushion to make big mistakes, not big mistakes, but to make changes that you want to make for your final project. I like that, and I appreciate that you're truthful because I think you forget that we're the same person. So I actually logged in to your D2L. The password was pretty obvious what you chose. And I actually do see right here from your Project 1 reflection, because of this, 2 days before the final draft was due, I decided to write a new essay that told a more recent and authentic story. It's pretty good to know. So basically, some takeaways is to actually finish I had a schedule to make wiggle room. I like that. I like that a lot. All right, so yeah, let's start talking about Project 2. Project 2 is basically an annotated bibliography where you have to annotate 4 sources on the literary skills that are needed in the field that you want to be a part of once you graduate college. So basically for the annotated bibliography part, you need to think about how the author of the article, of the paper, basically uses his words and why he uses those words and like what he does in his paper to basically influence his or her audience when making the paper. So basically, think of the annotated bib part as a rhetorical analysis paper, right? But however, I actually thought that was the easy part of Project 2. The hard part for me was actually making the 3 infographics about your literary skills that you talk about in the annotated bibliography. Actually, that doesn't sound that bad. Yeah, the annotated bib part wasn't actually that bad. I did struggle a little bit with the infographic. So basically, on top of it being an infographic, it actually needs to be an infographic about literary skills that are needed in the work environment, obviously. But the 3 infographics that you make have to also tell a continuous story, while all the 3 separate infographics telling its own story at the same time. I know it's kind of hard, but try to use, especially when you're going to be doing this project, think of using rhetoric when making your infographics, right? Think of basically the images and the language and also the story that you're going to be telling in your infographic to basically inform or maybe even persuade the person why you need those literary skills in your infographic, right? Don't worry, I was a little scared too at first, but once I talked to the professor and wrote my ideas down about the infographic, it actually went pretty smooth. I basically just learned to use the same writing process that I used for Project 1, so I actually kind of get ahead of the game. And so by peer review, I basically had a near final draft. So when it came to the few days before the final paper was due, I only had to make minor tweaks from the suggestions from peer review, so it wasn't actually that bad. Okay, I see why Project 2 went smoothly. Knowing you, because I am you, you like your informational writing. So I see why this one went a little bit more of a breeze. You didn't do a second draft. You kind of just, and I like that. I like informational writing, so I'm excited for Project 2. But let me hear what's in store for Project 3. I'm curious how that was like. All right, so let's start talking about Project 3. So yeah, basically Project 3, in my opinion, was actually the most unique out of the first 3 projects we did in the class. For this project, you're going to be having to use rhetoric, like I explained in the last project. Basically, you're going to have to dive deep and be able to explain like how you and other people make meaning with the cultural practice that you take part in. So like as I mentioned before, you're going to need to use rhetoric and think about the message that you want to convey to your audience, right? So you should start being mindful of what you're going to say or do or even show, because this is a multimodality project, and I'll explain that in a little bit, basically what you want to say to your audience, right? So with this being a multimodality project, just like Project 3, you're going to be basically using different modes to communicate what you want to say. So for example, in the last project, I made an annotated bibliography, but also on top of the annotated bib, I had to make a visual infographic. So that is multimodal. So basically for Project 3, in this case, I decided to make a video explaining my cultural practice. I also added sound and visual aspects in the video to help show my cultural practice to people who watch the video. So what's the cultural practice you did? Wait a minute. Did you do it on Inviere? How did you know? Alright, it was funny for like 5 seconds. I get it, because you're past me, I'm future you. Haha, very funny. You can predict the future. Alright, whatever. Alright, so back to what I was saying. Basically, my writing process for Project 3 was very similar to the writing process I had for Project 1 because I actually did make a finished product, but last minute I actually decided to make a completely new product to submit. And basically, in this case, for the first product, I actually made a podcast with my/your roommate, but it kind of turned into a history lesson rather than why I practice in Viera and like its meaning to me and the community, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, the podcast was complete crap. So with basically only 1 day to spare, I cranked out a mini documentary about Inviera, and I'm pretty satisfied for how it turned out. So did you submit the project in time? So no, I actually didn't submit the assignment in time. I actually submitted like around 50 minutes after it was due. I know it sounds bad, but I actually learned a lot from that, from turning it in late. Basically, I learned that I do need to give myself even more time than I have, basically to make room for these last minute decisions that I always have, because we both know how picky we are. So that's a pretty big takeaway. But another huge takeaway is not just to give myself ample time, but for me going on into the future, before I start working on any project, basically to avoid these last minute changes entirely, I gotta start asking myself 3 questions. Basically, is this what I want to turn in as my final project or product, right? Is this the best that I can do, and am I satisfied for what I created, basically? And I'm gonna ask these 3 questions to myself so I can avoid doing these last minute changes and stressing myself out before every deadline. So, any questions? No, not really. So basically, the key takeaways I took from the learning experiences you had from your writing process is to really think about what I'm actually going to submit, right? So I can avoid these last minute changes that you had for project 1 and project 3. But to also be on top of my game, because it seems like if you waited to the last minute to do stuff, you would have been screwed. Because I know you and I am you, and if you submitted that podcast for project 3 or the first paper you wrote for project 1, you would be in so much regret and maybe even receive like a grade that you're not happy with, right? So really, I gotta really be on top of my game, but also really think about what I want to submit so I can avoid those last minute changes entirely. I also noticed that in WRA I'm going to be placed into many different writing situations, like the different formats of writing, the audience I'm going to be addressing to, and the different subjects we'll be talking about throughout the semester. So that's pretty cool. But I just want to say thank you for taking the time and easing my stress about this class. I'm actually pretty excited to take this class now, but I think you forgot to mention what Project 4 is about. What if I told you this is Project 4?